The mainstream media is out in full force to defend the Acolyte from people who don't like the Acolyte. Let's talk about some ridiculous claims and articles that are already being rewritten. Let's talk about them right now on That Park Place. Hello, I am Jonas J. Campbell, an investigative reporter for That Park Place. And here with me is Sleuth, Mr. VashSky. Vash, do you know who did it? I think that's one of the mysteries we're supposed to care about in the Acolyte. Do you know who did it?
Probably the Jedi. No one knows what they're doing.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. The girl who comes out seeking for revenge, we already know that she did it. So that's obviously not the question that we ask. And we've already seen her burn the Witch's Coven temple or whatever that is, which is made of stone, somehow burns. But we've already seen her set that whole place on fire. So now all that remains to be seen is how in the world they're going to pin all this on the heroes of the original movies. Are you looking forward to that, Vash? Anyways, let's talk about this article out of Forbes. The Acolyte's 15% audience score is embarrassing for the audience scorers. This by Paul Tassi.
Come now.
Headline here. I'm very amused by this headline. And here, as of the recording of this video, the average tomato meter is 84%, which the last time I checked, I thought that they had this thing certified fresh as soon as possible. But the audience score keeps going down. Down to Goblin Town, to quote The Hobbit here. 23% now down to 15%. And here are Paul Tassi's words. While Star Wars has had many controversies in the Disney era, viewers have now mobilized a fleet of TIE bombers to obliterate user scores of the Acolyte wherever possible, namely on Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb. I previously reported that this started up right at release as the Acolyte quickly became the lowest audience-rated Star Wars project beside the infamous holiday special. Now, its former 33% has dipped below the special's 20% score and is all the way down to 15%. Having seen the holiday special, and I have a choice copy of the holiday special that one day may see the light of day. I have a better one than most people out there. Can't talk about that too much. I gotta say, I would rather watch the Acolyte at this point than the holiday special. But the holiday special is definitely a little bit better. This is not the only thing that we have to talk about today. Vash, you have an article that you're going to bring up.
Yes, I do. I sure do. This is when I found this, I audibly laughed, but they changed the title on us. So when you look this article up now, we see this title right here by Kelly Krusky of MovieWeb. The Acolyte isn't the best new Star Wars show, but it's a step in the right direction. Well, okay, well, that's kind of a mild take. It could be worse, and I guess it could be worse because previously it had this title. Star Wars, The Acolyte is far from perfect, but it could be much worse.
Oh, wow. It could be worse, guys. They could have singing B. Arthur in the cantina, I suppose. Wow. Okay. What is it they say, damning with faint praise?
Well, they go on to say, Star Wars has undergone quite an evolution over the last decade since Disney purchased Lucasfilm in the early 2010s. The iconic franchise set in a galaxy far, far away has expanded exponentially in the realms of both film and television. The result of this ambitious expansion is complicated. Oh, you think so?
Complicated. It's not that complicated. I mean, other than if you're trying to keep track of what's canon and what's not.
Despite the mostly incredible box office results, the Star Wars franchise is clearly at a much less dominant point today than it was 10 years ago. See? Not complicated at all. While new releases still drum up much attention, they are not the massive cultural events they once were. Bingo! The audience for Star Wars is shrinking, and countless factors contribute to it, ranging from franchise fatigue to divisive stories, a toxic fandom, and the lack of innovation in new releases right there. Divisive stories, sure. Toxic fandom, it's your fault, guys, that Star Wars isn't as successful as it possibly could. Here's the thing. One could argue that there was some toxicity when the prequels came out. However, that didn't stop Star Wars from being the cultural icon that it had been for, 30 years up to that point.
No, I remember the era of the prequels and, that documentary that came out, The People versus George Lucas. Of course, the Plinkett reviews, which had, I'm going to say, a few good points in them. But of course, I actually want to go back and watch the prequels because there are things that I like about them. I would put this in the perhaps I judged you poorly or prematurely realm, as opposed to this stuff, which I can't see myself ever liking The Acolyte. It's one, there's nothing fun in it. It's drab, and it also doesn't like the previous films. There's no incredible, I mean, there are action sequences, but they're really not that great. Like, okay, I'll give you, for instance, there are 2 kung fu fights, but they're not really kung fu. They're force fu, which is the least fun version. It's kung fu without actually making contact, which that is not interesting on screen. Lightsaber fights are generally fun, even when you have people swinging them around. You can distract them, even if the choreography is not good. The prequels had amazing choreography, but the Acolyte has had force fu.
Well, look at Ray Park, right? And you see that amazing duel with Darth Maul, Qui-Gon Jinn, and Obi-Wan Kenobi. Specifically, when Qui-Gon Jinn actually passes away due to what Maul did there. The fight between Obi-Wan and Maul at the end of Phantom Menace is unreal. The choreography there is great, and you could see some kind of martial arts elements thrown into that fight. Acolyte doesn't even do that.
That's very true. In fact, they seem more interested in equivocating between who is good and who is bad, and that I'm just going to call it now. The good guys are going to end up being the bad guys, and that's not a spoiler. That's just a guess. But as time goes on, Disney doesn't have anything good to do. Just in the same way that Marvel couldn't really stand to have Captain America be a paragon of righteousness. By the end, they decide to make him a little bit more self-serving, a little bit loose in the tongue. They just get bored writing people who have a moral code after a while. And now the closest thing you have to a moral code in this show is whatever Lee Jung-jae's his name is, Saul. And I have a feeling we're going to find out something pretty dark about that guy.
I would agree. I think there is going to be something that kind of like changes our perception on him. Perhaps there's going to be some twists, right?
Right.
So we have to acknowledge that we've seen episode 3 now, and we've seen how it shows the events as we've heard them unfold in previous episodes, but from a certain point of view, right? So they're going for that kind of multiple perspective angle, probably.
Again.
Yes, exactly. We kind of know where this is going. So in terms of like just raw intrigue, I just can't see anybody really being attached to what happens to the show right here. This article goes on to say that, well, this is the first live action story to be completely and undeniably disconnected from the Skywalker saga. I mean, there are kind of references to the Skywalker saga in this, so not really, but perhaps.
Well, essentially, Star Wars is the Skywalker saga, and the phrase "the Skywalker saga" is branding. It's propaganda on their part to say, "Oh, well, we don't have to tell stories about the people that you like." It's like having a Batman story that doesn't have Batman in it. You can have a story about Robin, but guess what? That's a spinoff because you still have Batman's apprentice there. You can have a story that's set in Gotham that doesn't have Batman in it, but at that point, why bother setting it in Gotham? If you're capable of writing a story that has nothing to do with the original, why slap the name on it? It makes no sense to me. This used to be something that worked. Putting the name of an IP on something made it to where people wanted to see the spinoff. You could have a Star Trek series that was set on a space station instead of whatever, but you would still have the Federation. Star Wars doesn't have those things. They have Jedi, but if they don't act like Jedi, then they're not really Jedi. Right now, the only thing that they seem to have in the show is lightsabers. But the thing that I want to come back to here is the idea that it is a step in the right direction to not have anything to do with the original films. That's cope.
Well, yes, and it actually says this in the article right here. One of the biggest problems that Star Wars has been facing over the last few years is the growing reliance on references, cameos, and connections to previous stories. The Acolyte utterly rejects this concept. Yes, it does, but to its own detriment. If it has no connection to Star Wars, well, at a certain point, is it even really Star Wars? When you look at it, so again, they want to have their cake there and eat it too. They want to utilize this franchise and this built-in audience for their own ends and not really have it correlate with anything else.
Right. I'll also add here that as they're talking about these, to return to the Paul Tassi article, they are going after Midnight's Edge. Friends of the channel here, Andre and Tom, and of course the many panelists over there that we like to see on Midnight's Edge in the morning. But while the Acolyte is getting away from the concept of good versus evil, it's very clear that the people who are defending this show are trying to make a good versus evil argument in whether or not you like the show. This is the true irony of situations like this amazing cope to try to defend a series. It's not a good series, in my opinion. That is a subjective statement, but I could be so bold as to say it's objective. I know that some people might like it. There are movies that I like that I know that other people do not like, that they have said are objectively bad movies. I'm not going to list one of them off. I do love Iron Man 2. It's in fact maybe my favorite Iron Man movie, but I still accept that maybe my opinion is a little bit out there. I don't consider people evil for strongly disliking Iron Man 2. When it comes down to it, the concept of story has thrived for thousands of years on the idea of good versus evil, inner conflict, and man versus environment. All of those things come together to create an excellent story. Right now, we have a story that essentially has no internal conflict. It has no man versus environment, and it doesn't have good versus evil so far. And you have someone who is both out to murder people for reasons that are unclear, and people that appear to be not that moral, but maybe moral. And also someone who is convinced to drink a poison that might end their life. All of these things are pretty much nonsense. They're not keeping people on the edge of their seat. They're just having people wonder, why did you do this to this story that we're familiar with and love? Vash, is there anything you'd like to throw in before we wrap this up?
The only thing I'd like to add in is, Jonas, please don't make me watch episode 4. Please don't. No, I'm joking. I'm watching it on my own accord because we have to endure it for everybody else so that they know simply not to give this thing viewership, because it is really bad. I think, you could use the term subjectively bad, objectively bad, but it's objectively bad, guys. It really is bad. Even Forbes, not this writer, but another, acknowledged what is going on with the critics.
I don't know. I don't know that anything is objectively. I don't know. But let us know in the comment section down below. Is there such thing as an objectively bad piece of art? Give us your thoughts on this entire situation in the comment section down below. Like this video if you like this video. And if you wouldn't mind, could you consider subscribing to That Park Place for all the news that should be fun?
Thanks for watching That Park Place News. For more information, consider checking out www.thatparkplace.com. And don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and send this out on your favorite social media account.